named the caregiver is a Soviet cosmonaut and was named the world's only spaceship, the pride and joy of the USSR. Listen to the last segment on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast. Heart failure, carpal tunnel syndrome, Ford Express, stomach issues, lower back pain. How does it all add up? If you have heart enough, it's time to talk with your cardiologist and get the full picture. Wetly amyloid cardiomyopathy. ATTR-CM is a rare and underdiagnosed disease. Recognized the sign is accessible for Dr. King. Learn more at connectwithyourheart.com. That's connectwithyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer. KFI, AM 640. KFI, AM 640. KFI live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. KFI, AM 640. Yes, there's that thing that somehow I trust. And I'll refuse you. Say it, must say I must. Say I must. You have the cool clear eyes of a secret wisdom truth. There's that time and we're doing nothing to do with you. I believe in you. You're listening to Coast to Coast AM with George Lori. Old-time classic, and yes, the late Robert Morris from How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Am I going to sing that song and say, what do you think? I don't know. It's a great song. You think you're fun, you do what you want. Our big group will be in Sedona, full show. Tell folks what they can expect. We're going to have so much fun. We're going to be part of a 3-day event called the Sedona Ascension Retreat event, March 17th through the 19th. Our show will be Saturday the 18th. So you can come all 3 days. There's non-stop, continuous music, food vendors, workshops. A lot of people are going to speak. Billy Carson, William Henry, Suzanne Ross, Paul Sellers. The list goes on. They're going to do a skywatch. This is going to be a power-packed weekend. And then Saturday, come to our show, Saturday night. And we're going to do a round table with some folks. Billy Carson will speak also on our show. We're going to do our salute to the veterans. Just everything we always do in our shows. It's a lot of fun. All you need to do is head over to coasttocoastgam.com. All the info is right up there on the website. Now, is this a theater setting or is it like the Copacabana? No, it's just a very nice theater, the Performing Arts Center in Sedona. We're going to call it, I've never done that. I haven't either, but it's a beautiful theater. So then on May 27th, we're going to be in the Oregon area for another live show. We sure do. We're going to go to a place called the Dowels. It's the Granada Theater. It's a nice little theater we found. Our 3 guests that night will be Dr. Sky Stephen Cates. We also have Travis Walton and from Animal Planet, Bigfoot Hunter, Matt Moneymaker. So the night will include a salute to the veterans, a live Q&A, and throwing some prizes. So again, if you go to coasttocoastgam.com, we have all that info right up there in the description. We're going to take your calls next hour with Ben Davidson as we talk about space weather news and all these other anomalies, and I'll be back with him in a moment to talk more. But first, build up your immune system. HealthyLooking.com and Dr. Alan Malay brings 4 decades of experience in natural products for the exclusive stem cell wellness kit that works with your body's stem cells to assist your immune system. Here's Dr. Malay with more. Whether it's physical activity, obesity, diet, smoking, low on hormones, stress, sleep disorders, or your age, can be supported by reducing inflammation and treating the body to heal itself appropriately. A stem cell is a cell where you need to be told what it needs to do. If there is inflammation, that inflammation needs to be stopped. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, kidney disease, depression, Alzheimer's disease, autoimmune disorders, osteoporosis, even fatty liver are chronic signs of inflammation and can be aided by supporting the body's ability to protect those cells that it needs. And that is the purpose of bringing stem and adaptogen together to supporting the body to achieve productive injury.
Dr. Moore, how will I feel after taking a Dr. Sam and stem?
The immune stem is going to have an immediate effect. But I tell you, your immune system is starting to function better after 24 hours. You put a Dr. Stem along with it, and most will feel it within 30 minutes.
Order now at HealthyLooking.com. The stem cell wellness kit from Dr. Moore protects your body's stem cells and will make you feel better faster. The stem cell wellness kit with the Dr. Stem and immune stem and your free gift relax app is only available at HealthyLooking.com or toll free at 563-3980. That's 800-563-3980. Don't forget to enter promo code George for free shipping. George's Stem Cell Wellness Kit at HealthyLooking.com. That's HealthyLooking.com.
Hi, Dave Michaels here. For generations, my family and I lived in the poorhouse, but not anymore. I found a way out, and on the way, I proved a few things. People who are struggling, people who don't have enough money to enjoy life, don't want to be like that. They don't want to live that way. We just never had anyone to show us how to stop thinking like a poor person. Stop slaving away for a paycheck and take control of your own life. Become your own boss. We don't have to be poor. Get out of debt, repair your credit, plan for your future. It doesn't matter what age you are. I'm teaching my daughter to build her own business. She just bought a car for her mom, and she's only 8 years old. She's a poorhouse in a rearview mirror. Thank you for listening, and have a fantastic day. Are you tired of being poor? Do what Dave Michaels did. Change your life for the better and help a lot of people along the way. Check out criticalhealthnews.com for a really good business opportunity. You don't have to be poor. Join our business team and let us show you our path to independence and well-being. New at criticalhealthnews.com. That's criticalhealthnews.com.
Tired of overpaying for your cell phone bill? Switch to Consumer Cellular and save up to half on your wireless plan. Their award-winning 100% U.S.-based customer support team makes switching easy. Plus, you can keep your phone and number with no contract or activation fees. They offer unlimited talk and text with a flexible data plan starting at just $20 a month. You can easily add your family and friends to your plan for just $15 a month per line. Never worry about dropped calls. Consumer Cellular has the exact same coverage as the major carriers to over 99% of the nation. This is all backed by their 100% risk-free guarantee. Join the millions of others who have switched. Go to consumercellular.com/radio25 and for a limited time, get $25 off when you use promo code radio25. That's consumercellular.com/radio25. Promo code radio25.
And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, Ben Davidson with us. We're going to take calls next hour with Ben, so get ready to put your space weather hat on. Ben, do you see anything out there that should be dangerous or concerning to all of us?
Yes, it's what you had mentioned a couple of times, the Earth-changing magnetic field. This is something that does not happen very often on this planet, and some of the things that I've already mentioned, the increased radiation from space actually being able to get down into the Earth system, it's going to cause not just a worse climate, not just for effects on people's psyches, but this can affect everything down to earthquakes and volcanoes. It can affect people's DNA. It's a pretty significant event that happens on our planet only, every several thousand years or so. And unfortunately, even with everything else we have going on in the world, it's just one more thing to put on the list of potential concerns for the near-term future.
And what about concerns for animals? What could happen to them?
So they are as vulnerable as we in a lot of ways. The fact that humans are dependent on electricity in a large part of the world is a negative for us, but we also have our intelligence and our ability to consume and understand information. From the animal perspective, obviously more extreme climate shifts are not good for them. More radiation is not good for them. But perhaps most importantly, it's not just birds that use Earth's magnetic field. finding their breeding ground to even subtle signals for things that are vital to their lives. So when we have such an enormous part of the food chain, so to speak, that is dependent on Earth's magnetic field in order for their life processes, this is something that can have cascading effects across the entire food chain. That can happen if even one link in the chain starts to have a problem. But we're seeing that this is several links.
I'm right here. I wanted to know more about peanut retention.
So this is something
It
going to
seems
end up affecting just about
it seems like
everything on
it
Earth.
is part of the religious condition of Tantra Taoism and Kundalini Yoga. Some proponents claim that you need to increase energy, focus, and motivation, as well as better physical and mental health. Others claim that peanut retention can improve sexual performance, increase libido, and even lead to more intense and prolonged orgasms. Some people practice semen retention as a form of self-discipline or as a way to enhance their spiritual or emotional growth. There are some potential risks associated with long-term semen retention, including prostate problems, testicular pain, and psychological issues such as anxiety and depression. Some men who practice semen retention may also experience wet dreams or nocturnal emissions in which semen is involuntarily released during sleep. There is limited scientific research on the benefits and risks of semen retention, and much of the information available is based on anecdotal evidence or traditional beliefs. And I mean, it was quite a few others, but I would say that this is a key one. We haven't studied it enough, and it would be something that I feel like as a society we need to mature and start to have these conversations. Not men so much as people. There are a lot of things that are not known about the female body that we need to study as human beings. Here's an example of having two details, but female ejaculate is not really known what it is. It is a combination of things perhaps, but it's not known and it's never been really studied in an academic forum because people are too embarrassed of it. These are the kind of studies I feel like we should at least start to research because perhaps there are benefits to these things, but we can't study them because we're just too immature as a society. And really, I just want to thank you again for enthusiasm. You've got a great space here. Thank you for all for being here.
Is there anything people can do? I mean, what can we do to avoid problems?
Well, there's not a lot that can be done other than being aware that this is the path that the Earth is going on right now. If I look here from some of the evidence that is locked in rock and sediment from some past times that this has happened, that humans today have never seen the kind of volcanoes and earthquakes and mega tsunamis that can actually hit this planet and have over and over again.
I mean, really, it's not even known as particularly the glands need to be studied more than anything. But frankly, it's really difficult to study on a living being because in order to get someone to that point, they basically have to be orgasming and to the point where they're squirting orgasms. And all women can achieve this. They don't all do it every single time. It just depends on the woman and it depends on the mood and there's different types of orgasms that she's having. But really, at the end of the day, we need a good test of studying female ejaculate and see what it is under a microscope. Too often is it called female cum, and I think that is offensive to women because it's not cum, it's not spermatozoa. It is their own liquid. I call it SOP, SOP. It's like cum, but it's SOP. It's female ejaculate. It's not cum. And when I've been with lovers, when we talk about it, I just refer to it as SOP.
How much of a matchup there is between what we are seeing in the natural world and what I read in that book. And it's not just in terms of what they say to expect with the sun and the earth and the weather and the earthquakes. If you look at the way people will begin to act,
it doesn't have a name. Let's name it. What would you like to name it?
Parts of themselves would make them an honorable and
I can define terms in any way in which I like, just to explore call it whatever you want. Call it Planet X, call it Project X, whatever female ejaculate you want to call it whatever you want. Just don't call it cum, because that confuses things with what men have. Men have ejaculate, Yes, but it's from the door, and we understand that much better than we understand female ejaculate. So I'm saying if women want to come together and come up with a name, absolutely, I'm behind it. I'm saying you need a name, call it female ejaculate, call it whatever you want. What's my right to be able to call it that? It's a hilarious name, just like Cum is a hilarious name. It's short, it's sweet. I give it that name, but give it whatever name you want, and I'll call it by whatever you want.
I think we take a lot of things for granted too, man. We put a switch, electricity comes on. We turn on our furnace, our natural gas furnace and heat us during the winter time. It always seems to be there. What happens one day when it's not there?
That's an excellent question. And essentially, it's the kind of thing where you have to, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think about what happens in the winter time when you don't have heat. What happens when stores can't refrigerate food?
As we're on the topic of the gender, one thing I'd also like to perhaps give some support for is the fact that, at least currently, on the social media platforms, they discriminate between men and women de facto on their face based on nipples. And I don't think that it's right that a man can be at the beach, have a picture of him on Instagram, and a woman, if she did the same thing, will get her account taken down. It precludes her ability to provide for herself.
And, there, it might be even more than that. And unfortunately, these things are taken for granted.
Yes, a man's account will not be taken down, but a woman's account will be suspended if they show nipples. It's about skin. I do every single day. I'm shirtless on it, and I talk about it. I'm an advocate of the free to areola movement. I don't think that you should be taken down for breastfeeding.
The worst possible scenario.
Well, I mean, it's a subset of nudism. I don't think there's anything wrong about being nude. So I don't think that we should let clothing get in the way.
This magnetic field of our planet can't protect us from the sun.
I understand, but you have to understand that these are technology companies that have stockholders, and they are on the back, on their face, discriminating against their users. And they're going to get or they're going to have to change their policy. And if anything, Facebook has already been told by an advisory council that they need to change that policy. And we've also seen that policy change that if you are breastfeeding or if it's for like educational purposes, you can show a nipple. So that is changing. So I would say we will see that in the future. But I really think that women need to band together and say there's nothing that we are doing wrong if we want to show our nipples. And most of all, we shouldn't be punished for it when men are not being discriminated against.
The worst case scenario is one day the sun takes our power, one day it's there, and one day none of the switches work. Within a day or two, there won't be any food in the store, no gas in the vehicle, no phone, no internet.
Planes fall from the sky.
It's very possible, especially since the satellites will be greatly affected by any kind of a solar storm. The changes to the magnetic field in general, plus whatever changes the solar storm is imparting, they're going to make GPS virtually unusable. It's a bad word.
That's a personal issue that you have with nudity. If you see people in National Geographic being naked, there's no issue with that. If you see people in the nude, okay. So let me ask. This becomes a good question for people who think that it's okay to be clothed or that think we should have a line. We videotape or take pictures of children in baths and things up to a certain age. What is the age we cannot do that anymore?
Proactive in protecting the grid as perhaps people like you and I would like. I can remember being in Washington, D.C. several years ago, and several of the best scientists in this field have basically said we're not ready for any kind of attack, whether it's an EMP, whether it's hacking, or whether it's a solar storm.
I understand. According to that logic, you shouldn't take any pictures of children under age 18 because it can tempt predators. The reverse of that thought is don't sexualize it and just it's just normalize it.
And solar storms and things to do, it is moving at a one wonders if we're just going to take too long, right? And something is going to happen before we have the chance to really harden our society against food risk.
And some of these changes explain why so many people are acting whacked out and weird.
Yeah, certainly. It's not just that, as we were discussing before, there's a direct radiation impact. It's not just, as we were discussing before, that greater weather swings have an effect on the psyche. In concert with these natural things that are happening, the world is becoming a very different place than even I remember. I'm only 38 years old, but I look back to what the world was like when I was a kid, and I don't recognize it anymore. Whether it's the blatant use of media and social media to affect people's minds, whether it's what I can honestly call, if I'm being kind, the degeneracy of the population. If I'm not being so kind, it kind of seems like moral, honor, loyalty, and ethics are being replaced by that degeneracy, and in some cases, what looks like almost Satanism if you watch things like the Grammys or the Super Bowl halftime show or things like that. And so from literally every angle, from what we consume as media, to what the weather is doing, to the subtle ways we can't see how space radiation is actually coming down and more greatly affecting people. It's like we're getting hit in our psyche from every angle, in every way that could possibly affect our emotions, our decision making, our demeanor.
And some people can't take it.
No, a lot of people can't take it. We're seeing hospitalizable depression on the rise. We're seeing anxiety be on the rise. We're seeing suicide on the rise. And, what's harder to see statistically is the subtle emotional instability that is creeping into everyone's lives when it doesn't result in suicide, when it doesn't result in having to be hospitalized due to anxiety or depression, when it just more affects how well one can do their job, when it affects how a husband and wife can live together and raise their children, when it affects how children are handling the stresses of growing up. Growing pains are now, much more challenging, and there aren't necessarily the support structures there that there were in the past. And that includes from everything from their teachers to their parents.
Website link up at coasttocoastam.com. Don't forget in YouTube in the search bar. It's free to sign up to subscribe. Just type in Suspicious Observers and his YouTube channel pops up. But we'll be back with your calls. The lines are now open. Coast Insiders. The new version of the Coast to Coast AM app is now available for iPhone and now Android 4.0 and above. Listen live or on demand anywhere, anytime. CoastAM.com and download it today. Is your car still under warranty? No, not anymore. My mechanic just suggested an extended service plan from Ox Car Care. Ox Car Care? Yeah, Ox will cover repair bills if anything happens to their car. New brakes, transmission, AC, or engine problems. Plus, Ox Car Care offers free oil changes, tire rotation, and roadside assistance. Wait, you pay nothing on repairs, Ox gets you fixed, free oil changes, free tire rotation, and free roadside assistance? Yeah, you don't pay. Ox pays. Ox even has a 30-day money-back guarantee and is A-plus rated on the BBB that handle their claims from start to finish. Unlike those other warranty companies, the last thing I need is an unexpected car repair bill. I'm calling Ox Car Care now. Call Ox Car Care for your free quote, 800-301-4089. Ask about senior and military discounts. Ox covers commercial car owners 800-301-4089. 800-301-4089. I love working on my cars, but I wish I had more space for my shop. Give General Steel a call. In business for over 30 years and with over 5,000 five-star customer reviews. General Steel can help with projects ranging from RV storage and garages, with churches, workshops, and even major construction for Fortune 500 companies. And all General Steel custom buildings are backed by our 50-year warranty. But that's going to cost a fortune. Actually, General Steel buildings are more affordable than other building options. And thanks to our highly efficient construction, you can go from dreaming it to enjoying it in no time. I need to give you General a call. I don't get one from you. Call 866-96-STEEL or visit mygeneralsteel.com to find out what General Steel can do for your home or business. That's 866-96-STEEL. Our team will answer your questions and offer you a customized quote. Just call 866-967-8335 now or mygeneralsteel.com. KFI, AM 640, more stimulating talk. KFI, AM 640. If you didn't like that opinion, keep listening. We've got a few more. You know what?
Los Angeles, Orange County. Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. All clear. I'm in Houston in the KFI 24-hour newsroom. People have been allowed to go back into the Hall of Justice in downtown LA after a suspicious package was found on a bus bench near the entrance. Someone reported the device around 12:30 this afternoon. Officials say it had 7 black cylinders connected by wires in a honeycomb shape. A K-9 team was called in, followed by an arson unit. 2 hours later, it was determined the device was actually a set of colored lights used at dance parties. The Hall of Justice is the headquarters for the LA County Sheriff and DA. Neighbors of the bishop killed in Hacienda Heights say they knew something was wrong when they didn't see signs of David O'Connor the morning he was killed. Officer Tejeda says he's lived across the street from O'Connell for 22 years and was worried when he didn't see him Saturday.
I'm in his yard, in my front yard, watering, 7 in the morning. He usually about that time, opens up his blinds, lets the sun in, walks his dog.
Tejeda says the bishop was a soft-spoken man who he talked to almost every morning. He's very proud because O'Connell was the love of the neighborhood and saw the good in everything. Students could transfer to UCLA more easily if Governor Newsom's budget is approved. Daily Times says Newsom's proposal would let any community college student with a certain GPA and completed credits be admitted. The university could lose up to $20 million in funding if the school decides against admitting more transfer students. The state's legislative analyst office says the proposal violates the basic tenet of fairness by possibly punishing one campus when others would not face repercussions. The legislature must pass the budget by June 15th. Disney issued a safety warning for people who ride Guardians of the Galaxy at Disney California Adventure. The warning came because of a TikTok trend that encourages riders not to secure their seatbelts correctly on the drop ride. Disney officials say they've had multiple incidents of unsafe behavior and will ask anyone not using the seatbelts the right way to leave the park. Southland weather from KFI, sunny and windy tomorrow. That's 45 to 65 miles per hour with highs in the 40s and 50s. Chance of rain tomorrow afternoon and evening and rain likely Thursday through Saturday. Snow above the 1,500 to 2,000 foot level. We'll get a break on Sunday, but another storm's rolling in Monday night and Tuesday. It's 51 in Dana Point, 52 Long Beach, 48 in Ladera Ranch, 50 in Baldwin Park. 3 leads local. In the KFI 24-hour newsroom, I'm Amy King.
Thursday work zone. It's only 2 westbound from Brooklyn to Baxter Street. Southwest at the Key Westway, southbound for Rosewood until 6. Sun Valley, DS2. Earlier track on the 5 southbound at Hollywood Way has been cleared from lanes. You're driving up the whole street in that area. Go around that area, they work on the 15 southbound from Hidden Valley Parkway all the way to the 91. 2 left lanes get you shut down for road work until 5. You're seeing delays in that area. KFI, the sky, let's get you there faster. I'll buy it, man.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anywhere else. And we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to figure out iHeartMedia can work for you. From the cell dial pound 250 and say 2 words, great results. That's pound 250 and say great results. This year is the year to learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. No matter what inspires you to learn a language, travel, work, family, or just for fun. The Rosetta Stone app used to use RosettaStone.com pay and save 40%. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned. I have two dogs, Sammy and Reaper, our golden retrievers. Poor Sam, he was always extremely hard, was soaking wet all day from just constant licking. He had bald spots on his back. I just don't like seeing fast food encouraging your dog all the time.
I'm like a second to have she's over here like, it's like, dude, I'm trying to give you more fucking life.
Probably 2 weeks after he I started seeing sleep improvements, and today 99% of his issues are non-existent. It's amazing stuff. So Bailey has been 12 weeks old. He's been a Dynamite dog, and he has zero issues today. He won't eat his food without Dynamite. When I get out for Dynamite, my dog absolutely thousands, like they're usually on the street. He's rule over it. Dynamite is the best thing you can use for your dog. I get my Dynamite from DINOVICE.com.
On the
podcast, Really No Real, that joins Sarah friends Jason Alexander and Peter Chilton, along with experts, newsmakers, and celebrities, in a search for answers to life's most fascinating, intriguing, and annoying questions. You know, those things that make you go, really? Now, really? The teacher was a 17-year-old in Rhode Island who ran a candidate that was a difference. Really? Really, that's news to me. That's Really No Really right there. Really No Really. Listen to Really No Really on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast. It's the perfect time for that new dream kitchen because the kitchen store is having its big fall sale. Find the best place for kitchen cabinets in all of SoCal and the big fall sale by dialing 310 Kitchen, and on the web at 310kitchen.com. I'm attorney Darren Capanopi, founder of 1-800-NO-COP, reminding you to exercise your life and just set off. It doesn't make you look guilty, it makes you look smart. 1-800-NO-COP, because no one looks good in handcuffs. Unless you're into that sort of thing. 1-800-NO-COP. California just made solar more expensive, that you can lock into this great race at sunluck.com. And you're fine. Like AM40, more stimulating.
Because I'm not using to half hard fucking. So,
To talk to George Norrie, call the Wild Card line at 818-501-4109. The first-time caller line is 818-501-4721. To talk toll-free from east of the Rockies, call 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies, toll-free, call 800-618-8255. To reach George via Skype, use Skype name George97313. Send George a text message anytime at 818-298-6521. This is Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. This hour we'll take your calls with Ben Davidson about earth changes, solar changes, as well as solar system changes. You name it, we've got it with your calls on Coast to Coast. Well, this year seems to be off to a turbulent start. Despite the U.S. breaking through the $31 trillion debt ceiling, there doesn't seem to be many plans to curb spending. So it's times like these that you might want to be diversified. Times like these, you want to have physical gold and silver on hand, and you can buy it at bullionmax.com/coast. That's right. Bullion Max will ship the gold and silver fully insured directly to your door. Think about that. Gold and silver, the world's oldest, most proven forms of currency, and it's there for you when inflation soars, when other assets go sideways, or when the lights go out for whatever reason. To get started, go to bullionmax.com/coast. Purchase your gold and silver. It'll get your silver starter kit for 6 ounces of silver, You get a limited mintage Aztec calendar coin costume. It's something Bullion Max and I set up for you. Simply go to BullionMax.com. Post now, purchase your silver starter kit. Take that first step to building that emergency reserve of gold and silver. BullionMax.com/post.
Real people, real stories. I had acute eczema. I had tried every cream and ointment that you can imagine to treat it. So I started taking Carnivora, and at this point, I don't want to ever be without it.
Our little dog developed this lymph problem, but the chemotherapy lasted for 6 months. We started developing more lymph nodes that were swelled up. So I thought I'd just try Carnivora. The lymph nodes started to go down, swelling did. Then I took him into the vet to have him checked out, and there was no signs at all inside. My dad had issues that developed in his eyes. So my veterinarian said, you know what, just go ahead and remove the eye. I heard the Carnivore advertising. So I said, you know what, I'm going to order this product. They did all this test. I kid you not, this product saves the eye.
Call 866-836-8735. That's 866-836-8735. Or visit carnivore.com. That's CARNIVORE.com.
And welcome back to Coast George Dory with you along with Ben Davidson. Ben, when will other scientists jump on board some of the things you said tonight and start saying, you know what, this is really happening?
At a large scale, that's a very good question. At a smaller scale, I have noticed a shift already, but it's very slow going. It seems to be happening almost one by one rather than something hits the airwaves and everybody jumps on board with it. It seems to be a slow, progressive opening to what's happening and the reasons for why things are happening. I'm not sure exactly what it would take. I'm sure if there was a major solar storm tomorrow that took out power to a large portion of the world, that people would wake up. But, I also wonder if maybe there won't be that greater awakening until it's too late and there's not much we can actually do about it.
And what is too late? What is the definition of that?
When it comes to a point where, despite our scientific and technological prowess as a species, we're not able to adequately prepare everyone for what's coming, both in terms of informing them and actually getting some kind of physical, psychological preparations that can actually help them deal with what's coming. That could be everything from a solar storm actually taking out the power, as you were describing earlier, or it could be something like the magnetic field, changes to the point where there's so much radiation coming in that we as a species just lose ourselves entirely.
How long do you think some people can go, Ben, today without their cell phone?
There are some people who seem like they can't go 10 minutes without their cell phone. I think that if that technology is lost, within about a day or two, people would really start to find themselves in a precarious position.
It would be lost, wouldn't it?
They truly would be.
Can you imagine? No internet, no Instagram, no Facebook, nothing. No social networking for people.
It would present a pretty significant challenge to the way people have become accustomed to living their lives, that's for sure.
Let's go to the phone. Joe, Long Island, New York, gets us started. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Dan. Great discussion. There's like two questions and then maybe like a comment. My first question would be objects in the solar system do qualify as planets and should be named as planets. And on what basis do they really make that claim? My second question would be about, that controversy. People have said, well, maybe we should look into the depths of the ocean. I don't know how far down we can go to the ocean, depths, like in the Mariana Trench. I think it's just too far down. See what's there before we put more of an investment in the moon. And then I would ask you about the deceptions that you see. You see a lot of that, of the deception of omission in terms of media. Sure, well, I mean, I can hit them all pretty quickly and I think pretty proficiently. First off, I will always call Pluto a planet. Pluto is a planet. Don't let anybody ever tell you it's the way they define planets are that are having a certain size to them, big enough that over time they have sort of collapsed into a sphere. How well they have cleared their orbit over time, and because there are several things out near Pluto, they say it hasn't really cleared its orbit because of how small it is and other things like that. I think that anything that is big enough to, have that pretty well-defined orbit where it's affecting more things around it gravitationally than things are affecting it, it should be called a planet. And first and foremost, that certainly applies to Pluto. There's also a large object in the asteroid belt called Ceres, and I think that should probably be called a planet as well. In terms of the depths of the ocean, absolutely. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the bottom of the ocean. There is an unbelievable, untapped resource of information about our planet, the history of the planet, and potentially the life on this planet as well that we just don't know about. I would agree wholeheartedly that we should be fully understanding the world on which we live before we, go full throttle in trying to outdo those efforts of understanding when it comes to other worlds that we do not live on and probably won't. In terms of the deception of omission in the media, this is one of the reasons why the world is not as aware as it should be. They don't necessarily have to come out and try to say something isn't real or something isn't concerning. They just have to not talk about it at all and throw other things before our eyes. People get distracted, they're misinformed, they're uninformed, perhaps even a good way of describing it. And this not only goes for, what people traditionally think of as the media and the news, but this is in terms of censorship of things on social media as well, and things on the internet. It is really the lack of reporting or the removal of information that is just as damaging as them giving us bad facts. I think I'd agree with pretty much everything that the caller said there.
All right, let's go to Brian, the state of Washington, on the wild card. Brian Kennedy. Brian, go ahead, sir.
Hi, George. Hi, Ben.
Yeah.
This is what I got. I was wondering what your thoughts, Ben. I know you wrote a lot of things on pole shifts, and we could tie this into, history, our Mother Earth to, biblical times. And I've tried to do research on, say, Moses, the 17th day, the second month, the great deep birth. So whatever year BC that could have been, but the research I could never try to figure out was, say, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, where a lot of people say it was this, until a lot of people talk about erosion, where
Could this all happen over time, or did it happen in one flat erosion? Where could this all happen over time, or did it happen in one flash? And then I'll compare that to, say, the Grand Canyon, where some scientists say, well, this took over millions of years to erode, or it happened in one flash. And I just was wondering your thoughts of maybe this tying into the Bible, this great burst of water, how they tie it into the Bible, the great flood. And I was wondering your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I think that both things have truth to them. Certainly, the wind, the water, the geologic shifts of time take away at great things. But as I mentioned, these long, slow, often peaceful periods are punctuated by great catastrophes. And the fact that they have that evidence of what I mentioned before, the slow geologic and weather processes, are used to essentially explain away everything. When you say millions of years, hundreds of millions of years for this, for that, it basically allows them to explain everything and anything, when in reality, there are much better explanations for some of the more severe aspects, some of the more prominent aspects of both natural features and ancient megaliths that are, especially now that we know more about how cataclysmic some of these past events were, they're just more easily explained by both major events, like what you were describing was the great bursts of water, the water that's from below coming forth, as they are by just saying, oh, hundreds of millions of years of this or that. It's one of those deceptions by omission or deceptions by misinformation, as we were talking about even just a minute before you hopped on. So I would say that where the caller appears to have been going with that is something I would agree with. There's a lot of evidence that whether you're looking at it from a purely scientific standpoint in examining the geologic evidence of these past disasters, or you're looking at the stories from the Bible and you're taking a purely spiritual aspect, I'll come back to the idea that these are not one or the other anymore. They are coming together and realizing that they're telling the same story but from a different perspective.
Let's go next to first-time caller Patrick, the Big Island of Hawaii. Hello, Patrick. Go ahead.
Aloha, George. Aloha, Ben.
Hi.
First-time caller, long-time listener. I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
I've been solar weather aware since the 1970s and following all the solar cycles since then, before we had satellite data. And I noticed a couple anomalies, specifically one with this current solar cycle 25, and the lack of coronal holes on the northern and southern hemisphere. I was wondering if Ben could address that. Secondly, when we have an active region that's turning towards Earth and producing various flares, when it reaches Earth station positions, they kind of peter out and they don't pick back up until they're past station Earth. I was hoping that Ben could also address that as well. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Ben. See what you can do.
Sure. So the lack of coronal holes. This one is, we went through the solar system and talking about the changing of planets, but perhaps the object that is changing the most is the sun. We are noticing a change in the helium chemistry, and we are noticing a change in the magnetic field of the sun. Just like Earth's magnetic field is changing, a lot of the other planets'